In this edition of Motorcar File, we had the rare opportunity to review and test drive the latest generation Bentley Continental GT. With a wider, more sculpted profile, the new GT is even more iconic than the original version, which debuted in 2002. The Continental GT brought with it an all-new super luxury coupe segment and pretty much revitalized Bentley as a brand. With the refresh, they retained the traditional 4 headlamp arrangement, and now the inner lamps are larger than the outer lamps, and both are adorned with jewel-like LED details. A notable feature of the new GT is the double horseshoe body lines at the back, which really highlight the wider stance and blend well with the elliptical tail lamps. One of my favorite details is the sharp eyebrow line above the headlamps that taper back and sort of disappear into the profile. And the profile is indeed one of the most stunning views of the coupe. You can see the 3 distinct sculpted flow lines and a definite resemblance to the 50s R-Type Continental. Modern touches also fit into this tailored package very well and are functional, like the rear spoiler, which is automatically deployed at speed for stability. In this example, we have optional 21-inch wheels wrapped in Pirelli P0 Z-rated tires, which help driving dynamics and road grip. Power is available in abundance with the 6-liter twin-turbo W12. You have 567 horsepower and 516 foot-pounds of torque, and being that the cylinder bays are in a W configuration, the sound is quite unique. We should note that there is also a V8 version of the new GT, so to distinguish the two, there are gorgeous fender emblems which signify which motor you've selected. But we'll go through the interior in detail, which has been refreshed quite a bit with things like Cobra seats as well as an updated infotainment system. And to conclude, we'll go for a test drive and highlight what it's like to drive a handcrafted luxury coupe with no compromises. Okay, so we're really excited to get through the interior detailed portion of this review. This is a second generation, of course, newer generation Bentley Continental GT, so there's a lot of refinements particular to the Continental GT, both to the exterior and the interior. We'll start off with the key. Gorgeous finish key, metal finishes all over, very heavy to the touch, nice textured side so you can feel where you're holding. So I really enjoy this new key for the Bentley. It is a keyless entry system, so if the car was locked and I had this in my pocket, I could just come pull the door handle. Similarly, you can lock it via the button on the outside of the door. So same approach. Opening is just touching the sensor on the inside of the handle. So right away, immediately you notice some of the quality control to keep the cabin kind of quiet. You have double pane windows, a very heavy, long door, and we'll go through that, how that feels here in a second. This Continental GT, of course, specified with a Mulliner package, has this gorgeous diamond stitching, and we're going to talk about that when we sit in the seat. But there's a lot of other features, standout features for this Mulliner package. This car does have the wood inlays in the door, which extends into the back, and we'll show you that here. But you do have contrast stitching, and this is an option. You must specify this. So you got gorgeous contrast stitching, and the leather feels magnificent everywhere. I mean, the saddle is just gorgeous. The feeling is gorgeous, the look is gorgeous, the fit and finish is gorgeous, and it extends through all the way through the roof. You have a gorgeous kick sill, very nice satin finish with a polished, handcrafted Bentley Motors logo in the center, and giving you the location of the manufacturing plant, Crewe, England. Of course, there's going to be a lot of close ties to Volkswagen, and we'll show you those things. So you have 2 options to start it. You can use the key to insert here on the left and turn on, or you can just keep it in your pocket, stow away the key, hold the brake, and push start. When the car initially starts for the first time, you do have this seat belt extension that extends out, and everything, all the metal accented features on the interior have this gorgeous satin finish to them, which I really love. And in a second here, if I don't put my seatbelt on, or if I did put my seatbelt on, in a certain amount of time, that will retract automatically back in. So one thing I immediately noticed about the door panel itself, it's very angular. In other words, this thing angles out towards the center of the cabin. Then you have a sort of concave surface here on the interior. So you have a very nice blend of different angles and sort of lines where the surfaces meet. Here where the window switches are, you do have polished window switches inlaid into this satin look, which is going to be everywhere. Your door lock and unlock, your door handle itself, which feels very, very sturdy and very tactile. Of course, automatic windows. You do have your boot opening switch here and your fuel door opening switch here. So off to the left here, you have all the newer Bentleys have this sort of aircraft inspired air vent, which is controllable via your hand, manually operated, and the air vent itself is of course manually operated, but everything feels fantastic. You do have these sort of airplane cockpit like push rod type buttons that will close and open the vent, and that's for all of the vents. Below that you have your headlight control. It's an automatic now, but you can manually go and turn it on. And you do have a rear fog light switch, dedicated rear fog light switch. Off to the right of that you have your steering wheel control for your adjustment on your steering wheel itself. It is electronic adjustment, and your comfort exit switch here. So if you turn it on or off, when you exit the car, the steering wheel will stow away up and move up out of your way. You do have your turn signal stock here for your high beam, your low beams, and your actual turn signal himself. And before we get on to the other side of the steering column, I want to point out how much we love these gauges. They are very new gauges. You get the sensation that they're modern gauges, but because of the way they're laid out, sort of analog, dedicated dials for each measurement, that's aircraft inspired, of course, old world car manufacturer inspired. I mean, it's just it's a touch of class to keep the classic look of gauges, but integrated with a very modern approach, and we love that. We love that about these Bentleys. Moving down into the steering wheel. So in the Bentley logo itself, where the wings are, you see these lines that sweep out. You get that same inspiration in the interior of the car as well, all over. So they follow through in giving the spirit of that flying bee, and give you the sensation of being sort of in a handcrafted machine, which is absolutely fantastic. To the left, on this sort of 3-spoke where the bottom spoke is split, on the left spoke you have your steering wheel heater control and your cruise control buttons here. Off to the right, on the right stock, you have your voice control, your telephone, your menu, which this menu corresponds to this main driver's information window. So if I push menu, it's going to cycle through all of the menus available to me. And this is actually where you would go to set up your phone, little other convenience settings, lights when you get out of the car, time and date. And of course it's manipulatable via this knob, which rotates up and down and cycles through the menus. Now when you get to a menu selection you want, you simply push this knob in and it will select that menu for you, and you can manipulate any setting it is you like. To the right of the steering wheel column you have your windshield washer control and your windshield wiper control, both integrated here into this stock. And of course you have this fantastic textured finish here, which is very tactile. I love that finish on most of the switches. A lot of the things in the car that rotate have that textured finish. Back behind, set behind this stock, you have your trip to reset your trip mileage here. you have your park distance control, the sensor on-off switch here, and your traction control, which has two settings. One setting is if you quick press it, the traction control goes into dynamic mode, which stays on, but it's sort of dynamic and spirited. You can turn it off or put it back into its default state, or you can hold it for 3 seconds or more. 1, 2, 3, and when you let go, it stays off. It's not dynamic mode, but it's really the traction control system is supposed to be as off as I think they're comfortable allowing it to be off. So again, following that old world style approach, you have an analog clock, and you have a very nice analog clock. Of course, Breitling for Bentley, they've partnered up, and you get a lot of Breitling, the wristwatches with Bentley inspired touches, and then of course this analog clock in the car, which has very nice wristwatch inspired old analog style fonts. The other thing I like about this dash and the way this whole thing sort of flows, usually the luxury cars tend to have a uniform sweeping dash one side to the other. This is sort of separated into little like nooks, one for the passenger, one for the driver, which is very cockpit and styled, inspired, and actually it's very pleasing. Once you're in the car, you feel like you have a good comfortable position and good command of the car when you're driving. Little details like that actually do make a massive difference. Moving down to that, you have your it's very Volkswagen inspired. Yes, it's, if you know how to use a Volkswagen, modern Volkswagen infotainment system, you're going to be just fine using this. It has dedicated buttons for everything you want on the bottom, but it is touchscreen. So for example, I went into radio and the radio menu came on. I can push the radio again to cycle between the bands, and of course I have dedicated favorites here that I can go directly and it'll switch to the band that corresponds to that favorite. You do have other features here. Instead of cycling through band, you can push here on the screen and cycle through the bands. So you do have some on-screen information and manipulatable options within each main category. Your CD insert slot is here, eject is here, forward track and back track with very analog buttons. So down here where the main categories are, you have tone. We'll just go through them really quickly. You have tone, which is of course your sound tone settings, and then this scroll bar tells you that there's more options below here. And funny enough, even in digital form, that textured finish is there. So even though it's digital, they've gone through the detail of putting that in there. So I love little things like that, focus details. Band, of course, we saw takes you to the radio. Media will take you to your SD card, which is right here. Your hard drive, integrated hard drive. And I should say that at 9 o'clock this morning, right now it's 2 p.m. At 9 o'clock this morning, I started to copy 2,000 songs from this SD card into the hard drive. And it completed this operation at 12 o'clock. So it took about 3 hours to get all those songs, 2,000, into the hard drive. Your MDI is your dedicated auxiliary connection, which can be found here in the glove box. Very roomy glove box. And one feature that I love, sort of standout feature, the manual is leather wrapped and hardbound. And the other thing that's sort of interesting about the manual is that the text, the size, the font, everything is exactly like a modern Lamborghini's manual, because of course it's Audi and Volkswagen umbrella, but you do really get a feel for how much is shared across each product line to make the whole process more efficient. So that thing, it looks just like a Huracan's manual, but the Huracan's manual is soft and not leather bound like it is in the case of the Bentley. So moving on from media, you have your telephone. Of course, I don't have a telephone connected now, but if you had a telephone, this would be your main menu for your telephone. You do have a map, which is immediately you can see the Volkswagen inspiration there. When you're on a road that actually has a speed limit, the speed limit will show here if equipped so, and if you have the subscription with Sirius, you can have your speed limit right here. All of your options for your map is here. So if you need to zoom in, you would push on the foot marker. Right now it's in 700 feet, but it might say mile. So you would go into the setting of the view here, and then you can increase or decrease how much you're zoomed in. You can also do this fly away, which if you push, it'll give you a broad look at where you are and then focus you back into where you were. Navigation is, of course, if you need to input a destination, and all your functions for inputting a destination are there. Your guide, there's no guidance on.
Is not active.
So it says route guidance not active because we don't have a destination set, and navigation is not on. So I'll do it again so you can hear. It just tells you that it's not active.
Route guidance is not active.
So the last setting would be the car setting, where you have your tire pressure. You can tell it if you have winter tires, if you have regular tires, summer tires, what size your rims are. You can tell it if you want to go what speed you intend to go, so it'll give you that corresponding pressure that it recommends there. So that's pretty fantastic little safety feature there. Of course, volume is on the left. There's nothing playing, but volume is on the left, and your track selection or menu selection is on your right. Of course, you do have that textured finish. Below that, you have an updated climate control system. When this car originally came out, we had one when it first came out, and that first generation, a lot of things about it weren't refined and as easy as this. I mean, they've made a lot of improvement to how you navigate through things, how easy it is, how quick it is, how intuitive it is than the previous generation. So those things, fantastic for the end user and for the end buyer. I mean, that means they're really listening, because there was a lot of complaints about how laggy that thing was, and the way it sort of functioned through. It wasn't intuitive as it is now here in this condition. Below that, again, your climate control, like I said, updated, a lot easier to use. Quick buttons for your directional if you wanted to go to your feet, your face, or the defroster and the front glass. I'm gonna get the transmission stock out of the way. Your fan speed is here. Your residual heat button, front defrost, rear defrost. And if you push this rear button, you can actually set the temperature of the air in the rear vents. Below that, you have your automatic interior cabin. So if you push this, it'll measure the quality of the air and intermittently turn on the outside air or recirculate as necessary. This is your sync button, which syncs your temperature to the driver setting. So it'll sync all the seats to this setting. And your manual recirculation mode. So if you push this, it'll keep it in recirculation. Naturally, these knobs, turning them will change your temperature, but pushing them in will take you straight to the automatic setting. Moving down from that, this is a Mulliner equipped Continental GT, so you have this gorgeous metal finish transmission stock. And it is an updated ZF transmission, and we'll talk about how it feels when we're driving. But you do have drive, sport, manual shifting here, and manual shifting via the steering column mounted paddle shifters. Electronic parking brake located to the left of the stock. Simply pull up and it'll activate, push down and it'll deactivate. Engine start stop button we saw. Climate control for your seats. So rotating up to the 0 means no climate, no comfort. As far as cold or hot is concerned, and then rotating up will take you into the heat settings. So the blue is obviously the cold settings. You do have a suspension button here. When you push the suspension button, it takes you into this menu here that'll go from comfort, normal, sport 1 to sport 2. So cycling through there, you can get an idea of how stiff you might want the suspension. To the right of that, you have your manual control for the rear spoiler, which automatically deploys at, I think, 90 miles an hour and retracts at 64 miles an hour. Or you can manually operate it. One thing about the manual operation, when you're 12 miles an hour or less in velocity or speed, when you push down, it'll go down in 4 stages. In the event somebody has their hand or something, they have an opportunity to pull it out. So this is the ride height. You can set it to normal or high. If you push normal, the car will lower itself to its normal setting. And if you push high, it will, of course, raise itself to its high setting. You do have your hazard switch to the right. So it's gorgeous metal finishes around everything. and wood inlays everywhere. One thing that's fantastic about the Continental GT, and I don't know why more luxury super luxe coupes don't do this, but they have adjustable armrests for the front passengers. I mean, who would have thought that you don't need a stationary constant position center console like every other car has, but rather you can move these into any setting you like. And of course below them you have the diamond stitching in this little rubber inlay to match the diamond stitching of the Mulliner. You do have a leather strap here which sort of separates this compartment, but it's in a gorgeous leather like finish. It might not be leather in this compartment, but it feels like leather. You do have a 12-volt power supply. Each one of these things also has storage, so you can open them individually left and right. And then this little slot here is for a SIM card. If you wanted a dedicated number for the car, you can insert a SIM card here. Once you do that, of course, the telephone system would connect to it, but you also have a dedicated handset. And I should note that this dedicated handset works when you have a Bluetooth phone connected. You can pull this out and use this as a privacy handset. And it works fantastic. We tried it, it was amazing. Here for your mirrors, you have your left mirror control, right mirror control. The center is the heat setting, and if you rotate it all the way down, the mirrors will retract for parking. Up in the top stack here, you do have gorgeous wood inlays, reading lamps which are operated via analog separate buttons, your garage opening buttons here, comfort access so you can program them and open up your garage when you get home. You do have your interior dome lamp, and the interior cabin lighting is set to come on when the doors open. So the main mirror has this button here that turns off and on the automatic dimming function. If the lights behind you at night are too bright, or any light source for that matter is too bright, this will turn on and off the function that will automatically dim this panel. From this point, we are going to open up the boot, open up the fuel door. We're going to open up this door and look at the seat control function, and open up the hood and look in the engine bay. Seat controls are pretty straightforward. You have lumbar control, a dedicated massage button which works fantastic and feels fantastic. You have an extension to your cushion which extends forward and back. You have your rear cushion or your bottom cushion control, and your backrest control here, and of course memory settings. As we said in the beginning, this car is a Mulliner equipped car with the extended wood, so you have extra wood inlays here in the back. This does come down as an armrest, leather wrapped armrest. You do have a 12-volt power supply and some storage here, and a cup holder which is finished in that same wood. The vents of course operated exactly as they are in the front. It's pretty impressive. There is a massive trunk space in the back, all carpet finished, gorgeous thick carpet finished. You do have interior latches, luggage latches in case you needed to strap something in. 12-volt power supply. You have two batteries, both on one on each side in case you need to jump the car. It's actually weird. They tell you you have to wire both batteries up. You do have a spare tire. Carpet finished on the boot lid itself, and automatic control. Even though this is a modern car, you do have a traditional fuel cap, metal finish, very heavy. So let's sit in the passenger seat. It's quick to note that the same functions as the driver is here as far as the seat controls considered, except for that seat cushion extension up here. But you do have the massage seats. Passenger compartment feels amazing, very comfortable. When you're in the passenger seat, you get a really good idea of just how much hide they used. Hide all over, hide in the roof, in the back pillars, all the way into the back deck. Hide all over except for the floors where there's carpeting. So it's just extended use of hand stitched hide. It's just amazing inside. particularly sitting from the passenger, because you get a good view of how much there is from the roof all the way down. And then of course the gorgeous 6-liter twin turbo W12. Amazing, and just there's no room to put your hand anywhere. So let's get her on the road and see how she sounds. Alrighty, so the most exciting portion of the review, probably unanimously based on the viewers and ourselves, is the driving portion. So here we are behind the wheel of the 2nd generation Bentley Continental GT. By and large, the Continental is probably the most responsible product for the revival of Bentley, and the owner of this car that allowed us to take it to review it has allowed us to keep it for a day. So we've had it since yesterday, and we can see why this is the product that revived Bentley. There's so many things that are good about it, and oddly enough, it does so many things in such an elegant manner that the bad stuff is really hard to complain about too, and there really isn't too much bad, but we'll try to point out what it is we thought that could be improved. So in the 2nd generation Continental GT, you have 567 horsepower and 516 foot-pounds of torque. That's up from the previous generation, 15 horsepower and 37 foot-pounds of torque. So you get a little bit more power, a little bit more torque than the previous generation of the 1st generation. And actually it's a little bit lighter. It's 143 pounds lighter. You still do have a 5,000 plus pound vehicle, but as the CEO of Bentley says, you know, we're not interested in making, you know, the lightest cars in the world. There's plenty of people that do that. They just want to make sure that this is the proper car that the people that purchase from them want. Where this thing falls between the S65 and the Wraith, it really finds it, or it carves itself a nice spot. It does all of the elegant things very well with leather surfaces everywhere, including the roof, and it does so many things on the sporty side so well with all-wheel drive and a 40-60 split. Of course, the updated ZF transmission, the 6-speed transmission in this car, updated from the previous model, isn't as laggy, so it's much more responsive, and you can command the transmission via these steering column mounted paddle shifters, which have a nice little indentation for your finger. So what we'll do here is, when the road opens up, we're going to take control of the transmission. It only lets you do it for some time. So if I pull the paddle, it'll go into manual mode, and if I don't pull the paddle again for quite some time, it'll default back into automatic mode. Similarly, you can use the transmission stock to move over into the manual mode. So we'll put it from 5th into 4th. Right now we're going about 40 miles an hour. The sweet spot for this motor, for this W12, is about 1500 RPM is where it makes the most power. So here we go, through the bends. Fantastic balance for such a heavy car, unbelievable. So let's put the suspension in the highest sport setting, Sport 2. We're going to put the transmission in Sport, and we will cycle through the gears one more time. So here we are in 3rd, full pull, amazing. As long as you want torque, this thing can provide it. Oh my god, that is awesome. Really smooth too, sort of seamless. And that drivetrain finesse sort of fits into this sort of iconic, timeless car all in all. So everything matches very well, and when you're in the cabin of the car moving, you almost damn near feel like you're driving in a custom British made piece of luggage. It's just that comfortable all around. Of course, all of the power is available. The horsepower is available at 6,000 RPM, and the torque almost at idle 1,700 RPM, and you got full torque. So here we go. It's fantastic. It is just fantastic. That 40-60 split does provide a little bit of understeer. It's not a very tail happy car, but it is a lot of fun to drive. A lot of fun to drive slow, honestly, and a lot of fun to drive fast. Brake feel for such a heavy car is fantastic. We haven't experienced any fade. Front to back balance is great. When you're at high speed and you press the brake, of course you're shifting the center of gravity forward, and you're sort of unbalancing or unsettling the rear tires, and this car doesn't exhibit any bad behavior in those conditions. Side to side similar, nothing to note about. What they could improve, honestly, extends from the interior portion of the detailed portion of the interior review. We talked about how long it took to download the music files from the SD card to the hard drive. Those kind of things can be improved. Little delays in the map zooming in and out. But other than that, I mean, honestly, if they're going to further refine from here, the next generation Continental GT is going to be a fantastic car. Not that this is not, but I can just see where this is going. And if it was the first generation was that revolutionary, the second generation built upon the first one, and you have this fantastic package you have here, then obviously the next generation is going to be even better. It'd be really exciting if we could get our hands on a V8 model just to see the comparison, the difference, but I would prefer, or I would elect to go ahead and get the W12. This car does have a very high base price, 190,000 more than a little bit more than 190,000, and you can quickly option this thing up to 230,000, 240,000. Here we go, one more pull. It is amazing. The balance is fantastic. So that'll pretty much wrap up the review of the second generation or latest generation Bentley Continental GT. We hope you enjoyed it. We love hearing all the comments, all the questions, all the feedback. We try to answer everybody as much as possible. Let us know what you think, and you can find us everywhere at or / motorcarfile, and you can find us on our website www.motorcarfile.com.